What's up guys, Cloudie here checking in from the America server. And as per your request, this video is gonna be about Galgoria team building for physical damage types. So the last video was for magic, this is gonna be for physical. Now as a heads up, I mainly play magic teams and magic characters, so I may miss a character or a perk or a UT here or there. I've tried to make this as comprehensive as possible, but yeah, there are just so many heroes that sometimes it's just really hard to keep all of them in mind. But as said, I have tried to include everything that is useful. Also, actually, there is nothing really stopping you from using hybrid teams if there is a need, because you are bringing actually less amp and more DPS to this type of raid because of the limited type of slots, and in this specific case the need for more than one DPS. So it's not the end of the world if you do a mixed team like both magic and physical. There have been clears doing those, quite a few of them actually. The format will be the same. I will go through the index of each class and choose or name my personal top pick for that class, and then also list what I think is viable and what is not viable for that damage type for physical teams. So let's get to it. To recap, meanwhile, we will need healing reduction on the first 3 stages. We will need 170%, and on the higher stages is 220. But when I actually say need, actually you don't necessarily need. It's not like World War 3 where if you do not have a maximum healing reduction, then it's just hampering your damage too much. Technically you can kill the boss, and I have done so a couple of times without maxed out healing reduction. It's just you need to deal more damage. Also, you will need at least 2 DPS. I found that either auto attackers or very high burst characters work the best. Those who need longer burst phases, like for instance Sarah, who needs her shadow form after several skill casts, those work a little bit less because they will less benefit from the 8-second buff, which is like 70% or so, and they will also often get interrupted by being banished, and that just hampers their own DPS. So not necessarily every DPS type or DPS character works well with the other one. I found personally that those who have Ignore Death are really good, and those who deliver very quick bursts are doing the best damage in this raid. So let's see what options we have. Now, the first one, I would say, if you do not mind losing out on a bit of amp and damage shred, then Mora is still the best choice even for physical teams. She just brings so much healing reduction, 120% on her own, that it is really hard to compensate for not having her. Because after that you have Solar Stone, you have like what else do you have? You have Solar Stone, you have the Archer tier 2 buff, and that's still fairly low, so it's really hard on a physical team to hit that 220 if you do not bring Mora. So I personally might just bring Mora, but if you do not like her, and there are other options of course for physical teams. For one, if I really wanted to be physical, I would probably pick Loman. Loman has a cleanse, which is also important, especially on auto, where you can expect your cleanses not to be on time, and attack down from the boss is really bad for you, especially if it not just hampers your DPS but your shield, which will lead you to die. So Loman has a somewhat long cooldown cleanse, but is pretty nice, and he has both offensive amps and defensive amps for you, so he's kind of nice. He's kind of good to have. For physical team, he would be my top choice, followed by either Philip or Klaus, who both have physical amp and defense shred, which also works on this boss. And Klaus also brings like an attack buff for your entire raid or team and your highest attacker, and he has like an attack down buff, so he might actually be a better choice than Philip. Not quite certain which one I would choose, depends which one you have built, I would say, but yeah, close, pretty good I think. And finally, Glenvis can also be used. She has a lot of amp, she also can cleanse, but again on a very long cooldown, so not reliable necessarily because the boss does it on like every 17 seconds. So for physical, Mora, if you do not want to run a magic tank, then I would say Loman. Okay, moving on. Warrior now. In the warrior department, physical teams really have a lot to choose from. I personally would pick either Chase or Dark Lord Castle. Castle also has built-in healing reduction, and he's an auto attacker, so as long as he's in his Dark Lord state, he will do a lot of damage. He will also stack the debuff counter on the boss a bit faster, which means you might get faster banishments, which again might trigger the venom attack faster, and it will mean that you stop healing sooner and the boss's attack goes up higher faster, so it might cause a faster wipe. But this is part of how you build a team. Chase also very good, I believe. He doesn't suffer from mana, as doesn't the castle leader, and his S2 burn doesn't affect him while he's banished. So Vespa was nice with him here, didn't make him useless. I have seen an A2 push somewhere between 300 to 4 mil DPS, I believe, which is more than enough to clear even like with a 2 DPS setup. So Chase, really, really good. He also gets a lot of crit chance, which helps with countering the debuff from the boss. So all in all, Chase and Dark Lord Castle are the best choices if you bring a DPS warrior. Now, if you want supports, there are a few options. Castle I wouldn't bring. Gao can be interesting because he has like amp, and I believe it was attack down that he had with his unique treasure. He has CC and he has a fairly low cooldown cleanse on your team. So Gao can be pretty good, and his CC means that the boss will cast less often, which means he will stack the poison on you less often and just generally deal less damage. Nyla, a generic Emperor, she can bring a bunch of buffs to you, and she also has like a perk for healing reduction, so can help in that department. Not necessarily the best choice. Priscilla, as far as I know, the buff type that Priscilla's soul weapon gives is the same as what you get from the boss itself. So this diminishes her use even when at A2, and her S2 only really goes to the highest attacker, so I wouldn't really bother with Priscilla. Scarlet is a PvP character, not really useful in PvE. And there is Nikki. Now Nikki, being an NPC and mainly PvP type, she isn't really used in any PvE content, and very few people actually have her built, but she does have both amp options and I believe healing reduction. So if you are lacking in that department, I think it's tied to her unique treasure 1, I believe. But yeah, so she can be used, just not necessarily a top choice. For physical teams, I would say either Dark Lord Castle or Chase can be very, very good. Assassin. Now, physical assassins are again one of the strongest part of the physical teams, or assassins are the strongest part of physical teams, and the top choice here is Cloudie. Cloudie is an absolute monster on single target, especially with high defense single target bosses because of his ignore defense skills. To give you context, the one I have seen was pushing 1 billion DPS, which is I think the highest that I have seen in any normal character. So yeah, Cloudie, again, NPC issues that you need to have a build NPC, but when built max, Cloudie is just an absolute monster here and hands down the best assassin. Other than that, I do not really know whether Roy and Reyna work too well in this kind of a content. I think Reyna might suffer from her stacks dropping, especially if she's chain banished, and I'm not quite sure if Roy is really working well on auto. Also, there is some restriction with mana because of the reduced mana gain, so may or may not be too good. Tanya can be used as a healing reducer and she has some amp, but I believe her personal DPS isn't too great, which is like because she's a PvP character. Urzi is mostly an AoE character and a PvP character, so definitely wouldn't use her here. Nia is also some character that people have asked about because she has amp and she has healing reduction. The problem is that on auto mode, and we are building for auto here, she is not reliable, so she doesn't necessarily use her skills in the right order, which hampers her uptimes, and it's just and she doesn't do too much DPS. So this is one of the slots where physical teams can bring a lot of oomph, you know, a lot of DPS. There with 3 potential candidates, so wasting it, so to say, on a buffer may not be the best choice. You might even be better to bring a magic DPS in this case and just go for a hybrid team. But yeah, definitely Cloudie the best choice. Archers. Now archers are interesting because there aren't that many physical archers, which is curious. One of the originals one is actually the best selection here, Celine, who has low mana, fairly low cooldown, ignore defense, burst skills, and also autos, which is kind of nice. So Celine works very well. I have also seen her push 300-400 million DPS here, which is just pretty nice, and she works just well. Definitely the best choice in my opinion. Yanne, believe there was a clear with her, but she's like a dragon killer, so not really what I would choose. Zafir has some death reduction, shields. His DPS is, I believe, not the greatest on single target fights, but he can be used, and some people have him built for like Guild Conquest or PvP, so definitely not a bad choice. Rakina can be an Amper and definitely used as with her poison. She can do damage even when she's banished. I think Rakina is more of a PvP character, and not that many people have her built for PvE, but she can be used, so it's not impossible to run her. Just wouldn't be my first choice really. But if you just want like some amp and the tier 2 perk for the healing reduction, which physical teams really need, then Rakina is also a decent option. Mechanic. Now this is one place where again physical teams have a lot of options, and well, I would choose Pensiron as the top choice for this one. If you haven't seen the video yet, there is one, not mine, but someone who killed Galgoria 4 with a probably maxed out Pensiron in 11 seconds. Yeah, that's right, guys. 11 seconds for stage 4 clear. Obviously, that was on manual with a very specific team, but still, she almost one-shotted the boss. It's like ridiculous. So Pansy very strong. She also has very good scaling, and she brings some healing reduction as long as her blaze doesn't drop, which might be the case because her burst is so massive that she might be banished for more than one phase. So that can affect her in a bad way. Right after her comes Cecilia, who is more of an auto attacker but also has quick bursts. Cecilia is very strong, quite well used. Her skills are a little bit expensive, and she may not be able to keep up her S2 buff all the time, which can hamper her DPS. Also, she is melee, and melee have a hard time here because of the tail swipe hitting them. So might be a little bit less optimal than Pensiron, but Cecilia is also a very good DPS, very powerful, can be really good. After that, other DPS, well, there is a Crow, which is interesting because I have not seen this personally, but I have been told that there was a stage 6 clear where Crow just one-shotted the boss. But obviously that needs manual play, so we are building for auto teams here, so I wouldn't necessarily recommend Crow because he just doesn't play well on auto. He will not stack his S1 and stacks, and it's just not really optimal. Other options, Mitra is not too bad, and maybe even Rodina. Rodina used to be a pretty good single target DPS, so she could be used, I believe. Not too bad. Mitra's issue is, I believe, that he takes too long to stack up, and this fight you kind of want to finish in less than 2 minutes, because after that the boss will just have too many stacks and it will just start hurting too bad. Lacroix, I think Lacroix's DPS is kind of limited, and he doesn't really excel as a buffer either. He can be used in like shock name raids because of the mana things, but I wouldn't take him for this one. Miruru is a buffer mainly, and not bad at that, but I think if you want to take a buffer, then there are better options, and better yet, you could just take a DPS because physical teams have a real good time here. For buffing, either Annette or Oddi both are very strong choices. Annette for the cleanses, the crit and the speed buff, and the continuous healing. So that's pretty nice. Also provides CC immunity in case you needed it, but that's like the least of her stuff. And Oddie, who just does the whole reset thing and also cleanses in the process, provides mana. He's pretty good. And Hanus is a PvP character and of course Guild Conquest character. She does okay on AoE content, but this is single target and I don't think she's really built for it. I wouldn't take her, but who knows, maybe someone has tried. Now Wizard is an interesting category for um, physical teams because there aren't that many physical wizards. There is Nyx, who is an AoE character and the PvP meme, not recommended. There is Lilia, on the other hand, who is pretty bursty, has a lot of mana regen, and she can be pretty nice. So Lilia was actually the other DPS with Panseron in that 11-second clear. She is quite nice and provides some buffs too, so if you have a built Lilia, she can be quite alright. Other option might be Kayn, who brings some buffs and some healing. He's kinda not optimal, I believe, because as a DPS he's more optimized for multiple stage fights, so he may not work that well. But I have seen clears using Kayn. Other option would be Veronica. If you just forego and say you do not need DPS from the wizards, but you can get some amp and CC from Veronica, that might work pretty well as well. And another option would be that you just take healing reduction, whether this is like from Xera or like Maria, who has like a 50% in her base unique weapon, or you can do mixed teams and take like Lorraine, or you could take Aisha to like trigger the banishment more often and get the buff more often. But as I said, this is a bit of a gamble. So yeah, physical options on wizards are a bit limited until Isolette comes around, who may or may not be good for this. We have yet to see, so can't really recommend her just yet because we don't know what she does. And Priest, finally, well, still Fallen Frey is the top choice. There are other options like Laias or even Juno that can be taken, or Shea. There are some support options if you are doing 4 where you can take more than one priest, like you could take a Lucius or you could take an Evan. Juno is not bad at all actually, but yeah, top choice for this raid is still Fallen Frey because she's a very strong combination of a buffer and a survival specialist with her fat shields. There are ways to make it even better, like having a line that decreases the cooldown of her shield skill because she's a bit stupid on auto and can absolutely wreck you with casting her S3 at the wrong time. But yeah, Fallen Frey, definitely top choice. Other choices could be like Juno, Shea, maybe a Lucius, but his cooldowns are a bit too long for a single healer, and Laias, I would say. So yeah, this is it really for physical teams. I hope I managed to mention everyone noteworthy. If I have missed out someone, feel free to leave it in the comments below. If you have any questions or other comments, feel free to leave those as well. And yeah, this has been Cloudie for now. I hope you found this helpful, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.